Hi everyone, Teddy Baldassarre with TeddyBaldassarre.com, and in this video we're looking at a classic from Grand Seiko, the SBGA211, also known as the Snowflake. So if you're not familiar with this channel, this is where we cover watches available for purchase on our website, TeddyBaldassarre.com, as an authorized dealer. So in this video, deep dive on this timepiece, final points of consideration at the end, but also throughout the video, you have further questions. Check out the link in the description down below to the product page, where you can also reach out to one of my colleagues on live chat if you have any questions at all. But without further ado, jump into the video, take a closer look at this watch. Two of the key elements that have led to Grand Seiko's worldwide acclaim are their captivating dials and their trailblazing technology known as spring drive. If there was an original poster child of infusing these two ideas into a singular form, it has to be their now iconic Snowflake. When first introduced, collectors were dazzled by the ultra-fine finish of the titanium case, wowed by the technological prowess of the spring drive movement, and absolutely blown away by that dial. Grand Seiko has been known in their native Japan for outstanding quality since the 60s, but only dedicated collectors outside of Japan had an awareness of them for decades. One of the most notable vehicles that transmitted the message of Grand Seiko's capabilities to foreign lands was the evolution of the Snowflake. The original SBGA211 Snowflake made its debut in Japan in 2005, showcasing their 9R spring drive caliber. The elevated status of Grand Seiko over its more attainable brother Seiko was always there. However, given the business structure, Grand Seiko operated as a subsidiary under Seiko for years, with these early versions of the Snowflake giving a clue to this with the double branding. That was until 2017, when Grand Seiko developed its independence as its own business entity. Simultaneously with this announcement, Grand Seiko needed a hero product to show what the brand was all about. Enter the SBGA211. This was probably the piece that put Grand Seiko on the worldwide stage. It had the revolutionary movement, phenomenal case finishing, the imagery of nature with its dial, and now a singular sign dial to show the brand's independence. So with this preamble out of the way, let's take a closer look at the SBGA211. If you remember the early reactions to the Snowflake online, you would hear things like video or photos don't do these watches justice. But let's be clear, it looks pretty amazing with the camera as well. If you haven't seen a Snowflake up close, it's easy to get lost in the frigid texture of the dial. And it's one of the crowning jewels in Grand Seiko's growing portfolio of dials that take their inspiration from nature. The beginning of the Snowflake dial and its unique appearance go all the way back to the 1970s. Before Grand Seiko's debut on the world stage in the early 2000s, the brand was gearing up for the introduction of their 9R spring drive movement, and their Shinshu watch studio was commissioned to create a spectacular new dial worthy of that groundbreaking caliber. Inspired by the snow-covered mountains surrounding the studio, they set about creating a brilliant white texture with a high degree of reflectivity. A prototype stamped brass dial from a 1971 experiment had the correct texture, so then the challenge became how to finish it in a dazzling white. Simply painting the dial tended to smooth out the surface, filling in those microscopic textures. So some creative thinking was necessary, and the solution was, believe it or not, silver. Pure silver has the highest light reflection of any metal. After a long period of trial and error, Grand Seiko had its formula. That silver-plated brass dial reflected and refracted the light so brilliantly that it actually appeared white to the naked eye, and a finish that looked like driven snow was the result. But the rest of the dial is no less than spectacular, with those razor-sharp Dauphine hands. Equally stunning are the faceted indices, where each facet is cut independently on a drum operated by a trained artisan that has to align each index and inspects to ensure the right amount of reflection is achieved. A frame date window at 3 matches the frosty Snowflake aesthetic, as does the spring drive power reserve indicator hand above 7. A thermally blued second hand breaks the white and silver motif with its gliding sweep effortlessly running along the dial. Dial text is simple and clean with the Grand Seiko logo and the word mark below 12 and spring drive above 6. A familiar term in Grand Seiko's glossary you may be familiar with is Zaratsu, and this high-intensity titanium case is expertly done using the process. One of the most interesting results of the Zaratsu process is how it manages to make titanium, a material that is notorious for its difficulty to polish, look like stainless steel if you were not privy. The curves and the beveled edges of the 41mm case feature a combination of hairline brushed and mirror polished finishing. The process of Zaratsu calls upon a rotating metal disc fitted with an abrasive sheet that spins rapidly as an artisan hand applies pressure to create the form of the case as well as these distinctive facets. True to the Grand Seiko theme of heritage watches, the case is 100 meters water resistant, and it features a screw-down crown for added protection. The 3-link bracelet features a nice mix of finishing and secures with a branded 2-button clasp. Since this is titanium, the bracelet calls upon pins for changing as opposed to screws in many of their stainless steel watches, and it doesn't offer any on-the-fly adjustment, which is one of the main pain points for collectors when looking at this watch. Looking at the wearability, you have a 41 millimeter diameter as mentioned, the thickness at 12.5 millimeters, and a lug-to-lug of 49 millimeters. That might seem like a larger watch, but on the wrist, I would say this wears closer to a 40 millimeter, given that you're going to have some assistance with how the bracelet is going to meet the case, and then also the titanium being lightweight makes this one not feel as heavy on the wrist, and in turn, makes it wear smaller. With such a spectacular dial and sharply executed case, it can be easy to forget the other highlights of the Snowflake, including the technological masterpiece of the 9R spring drive movement. The spring drive movement combines the upsides of automatic watches of providing a power supply driven by our motion through an oscillating weight and a mainspring in a barrel, with the upsides of a quartz watch with its accuracy and stability under duress, whether by temperature or position. To lay it down in the most simple form, the spring drive uses mechanical power as a reserve of energy with the help of a mainspring, and with the freely rotating wheel known as a glide wheel at the far end of the gear train, it is able to create a small electrical charge with the help of its magnet at its axis in close proximity to copper wire. That sends an electrical signal to an integrated circuit and quartz oscillator. From here, the IC is able to send back an electromagnetic pulse to the glide wheel with the help of copper wire acting as a frictionless brake to ensure the wheel rotates in a single direction 8 times per second, in turn creating the effortless sweep that you will see on the front of the second hand, as well as making possible its incredible accuracy. All of this is done while also being ultra efficient in the process. In fact, if you were to give every person in the United States and Europe a single spring drive watch, the electrical charge created by the glide wheel in all of those watches could not power a single light bulb. With the movement topped off, it has a power reserve of 72 hours, which can be seen at any moment on the front of the dial. And in short, spring drive is a technological embodiment of Grand Seiko's ethos of watchmaking. It's forward-thinking, creative, effortless, and ultra meticulous. In terms of some of the other features, it does feature hand winding and hacking. Hacking stop in the seconds when you pull the crown to the farthest position. Power reserve again is 72 hours, and in terms of accuracy, plus or minus 1 second per day or plus or minus 15 seconds per month. And how that accuracy is achieved is coming down to the amount of vibrations per second. This movement vibrates almost as much in 1 second than a high beat movement will vibrate in an entire hour. So now let's talk a little bit more about the Snowflake. It's very surprising to me that this is the first time I've ever reviewed this watch in more detail. I have been familiar with this watch. It was a part of my journey in many ways in becoming fascinated with Grand Seiko, but the first video I've ever made independently reviewing this watch, which is pretty crazy to think about. Now, some of the considerations on the negative end before we jump into the positives. One is going to be the bracelet. I know a lot of this is overblown in my opinion. I think there's 2 things that happen. One is micro adjustment, which I think is absolutely fair. If you are somebody that wants a perfect fit and you might be on the unfortunate side of things where you can't get it just precisely, you might have to make some compromises for this to be slightly looser than you'd like it to be. So that's one consideration there. I do think some of the bracelet general points around finishing and how it feels comes down to just titanium's weight as a material. Some people feel that less weight might come off as feeling less luxurious, but if you think about it, there aren't many titanium watches from the bracelet to the case available until you start to get into Grand Seiko watches, which makes sense. This is probably many people's first time confronting a full titanium case and bracelet watch, which does give off a totally different feel and does not feel as substantial as stainless steel, but in turn does come with some other upsides with that reduced weight and allowing this watch to wear smaller than it might indicate. But now shifting over to the pros, and now that there has been so many watches that have come out from Grand Seiko since the release of the Snowflake, it's easy to forget how important this watch was. This was the piece, more than probably any other, maybe you can argue some of the Four Seasons watches, but that came after, that put Grand Seiko on the map. And a lot of this comes down to what this watch is able to deliver. There's a romantic aspect of this watch, but there's also this logical point where it's able to be utilized in so many different circumstances. The case finishing is phenomenal and next level. The dial is simply phenomenal. The imagery of nature and tying it in with Japan, I think was one of the original points that allowed so many people to gravitate towards these watches. This is also one of the rare instances where you're getting a titanium bracelet and a titanium case while getting this level of case finish as well at this price. Pretty tough to beat. And then spring drive technology, I don't know if I can talk about spring drive enough. I mean, I always just get excited when talking about spring drive because whenever you go to camera and you talk about watches, a lot of them are using, simple approaches, just getting the job done. With spring drive, it's a testament to this creative problem solving that Grand Seiko was able to foresee, and also just expressing a different way of telling time and doing it in a way that is unlike any other in the entire industry. That to me is special, and it almost just gives me life when talking about it. It reminds me why I love watches in the first place. And then just getting down to the logistics of the day-to-day, the spring drive is one of the most versatile watches that you can come across. It looks great with formal attire. It also looks phenomenal in a casual setting. This is just one of those pieces, if you're looking at Grand Seiko, that has been transformative in elevating the brand. Yes, it might be one of the safe and easy choices from the brand to now look at, and maybe we've seen it so many times that we forget about its importance. But if you get down to the core of it, the Snowflake is one of the most important watches that Grand Seiko has ever produced, and even to this day is still one of their most versatile all-around watches that represents the brand in an amazing way. All right, guys, that's all we have for this video. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Really do appreciate all of that. Also, if you are in the market for this watch, we do have it available on TeddyBaldassarre.com. TeddyBaldassarre.com is an authorized dealer for over 30 brands. Every watch that we sell on our website comes with quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support, full factory warranty. Also, if you have any questions about some of the watches we have on our website for sale, just reach out to one of my team members. 18 hours a day, we are on live chat there to answer your questions. And then also how you're able to support the content here, how we're able to really run this entire business is through selling watches. So if you are in the market for a watch, we'd love to have your business. Allow us to keep doing what we're doing here. We love what we do. Guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I'll see you all very soon.